Can you all hear me?
Can you all hear me now?
Yes. Okay, good morning everyone, and thank you to Mr. Pavan Varma for coming back. How many of you were here last time for the first class on the Great Indian Middle Class? Great. So then we're going to pick up from there. And this time, Mr. Verma has insisted that the entire conversation will be based on your questions. You can ask him anything, especially on this particular topic. So just raise your hand and we will pass. Is there a mic or you can just, even if there's not a mic, young people, you can shout your question, give your name. So any remarks that you want to make first, or would you like to just go and open to the students straight away?
It was, thank you indeed. It was wonderful interacting with you last time. And when I spoke last time, one of the things I stressed, and I interact with a lot of students, is that beyond your curriculum, beyond your course, beyond your degree, ultimately, you and this country will move forward on the basis of your ability to think on your own, to question, to interrogate, to ask, to push the horizons of your knowledge beyond the conventional boxes that you are given. And it was on that basis that he and I felt that based on the discussion last time, we were talking about the middle class, many ramifications. Based on that, you can ask me any questions related to it or to any other query which you feel is relevant to India and therefore relevant to the middle class, of which all of you and we are a part. So I'll stop here, and I want you to be open to ask what you normally not ask, because that's the only way to have a discussion. You know, India is famous for a time tradition called Shastra. Shastra means Sabya Samvad, civilized discourse. It's time. Either we shout at each other, or we believe that anyone opposing us is anti-national or against the interests which I believe are right. It's a wrong approach, because our whole civilization for the last 10,000 years has developed on the basis of question and answer. You'll be surprised how remarkable that is. The Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue. The Upanishads are a dialogue. Even the Brahma Sutra, there are three foundational texts of Hinduism, at least in Hinduism. The Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra, and the Veda, and the Bhagavad Gita. In the Brahma Sutra, while there are tiny aphorisms packed with meaning so short that it takes your breath away. It is an old saying in India, Max Muller said it actually, that there is a Sanskrit saying that if you can reduce that smallest aphorism by even one letter or one alphabet, it gives the same pleasure as the birth of a child. In other words, compressed intellectual energy. And even in the Brahma Sutras, they are very short, but they are developed through tika and tippani, commentaries, which run into hundreds of pages. And in the tika and tippani, there is always put the voice of the opponent's point of view. So it's never a one-by-one monologue. When you are discussing the validity of a particular point of view, our ancient text said this is the opposing point of view in that text and then counter. So essentially, I am giving you this background to say that dialogue, the ability to listen and the ability to learn and the ability then to synthesize from both is something that perhaps we lack. And the best of us, and we are in one of the best institutions. So I want that to be the premise of this course of interaction, which I hope we will have more than once in the course of the subjects we take.
So who would like to ask the first question? Stand up, and if there's a mic, just pass it on. Also introduce yourself.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nikhil Sharma, and I'm a student of MBA. So, sir, lastly, in last class, we finished a class at some points of Charvak, the Buddhism. We talked about that, and in the starting remarks, you also said this thing that we should learn from that. So, which philosophy, which kind of things that we should follow? Because there are so many philosophies, and I've read so many philosophies because I was a student of history as well. Because I was preparing for exams, so I read that, and so there's so many different kind of philosophies I came across, and sometimes they contradict each other. So, who should we follow, and why should we follow?
Good question. I will not tell you whom you should follow. Figure. That's the beauty of it. You must evaluate after reading as much as you can about the different angles that you believe you read. Which one of those appeals to you in terms of rationality, logic, fulfillment, consistency of argument, and as corresponding the best to the reality around? Now that's why I say there are options before us. In Hinduism, for instance, and I will talk about other religions as well, for whom I have great respect. They may be different from ours. But we have to also focus on what is good about it. And there is many things wrong in Hinduism which we need to correct. One of them is gender disparity. One of them is exploitation and oppression within Hinduism of some people because of the oppressive caste system. But I will come to that. Now in Hinduism, there are 6 systems of Hindu philosophy. As I probably mentioned last time, not one. Now you can choose to be an atheist because we have the Charvak school, which is an atheist. You can choose to be an agnostic. The first Prime Minister of this country said publicly that I am an agnostic. I neither believe nor do I disbelieve. It's a choice. But I can't impose it on you. And if not, there are 6 systems of Hindu philosophy which are Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Purvamimansha, Uttam. Uttam Mimamsha, for instance, for me, I find the most powerful, which is Advaita, non-duality, Vedanta. In fact, my son's name is Vedanta. So, you can choose. I am reading the book of Adi Shankaracharya. Adi Shankaracharya, Hinduism's greatest thinker, which, because he was one of the most profound thinkers who, much later in the 8th century, developed the logic of the Advaita school of thought, which is the good Brahman thought, which is based on the Upanishads. So if the choice is yours, you have the freedom. If a group of Thekadars tell you, and this is what I want the middle class to think about, in an institution like this, which should be a crucible for being able to question, then you will produce Nobel laureates in different fields. If a group of Thekadars tell you this is Hinduism, this is what you should wear, this is how women should dress, this is how you should eat, this is the rituals you should do, this is the worship which is sanctioned, then your response should not be one out of fear, because there is no need for fear, there is a constitution. Everyone is entitled to a choice. Your choice should not be based on the fact that I am not aware of any response to this diktat. It's a diktat, it's a fear. Hinduism is a way of life, you all know it. आप मंदिर जाइए, मत जाइए, आप पूजा करिए, मत करिए, आप ध्यान कीजिए और आरती न करिए, आपकी चॉइस है. So now this religion gives you, for instance, I'm talking of Hinduism, I can talk of other faiths as well. It gives you a choice. So if you are told that a woman wearing jeans does not conform to the concept of a chaste nari, which some people think corresponds to what a woman should be in Hinduism. Exactly. Then the women here, the men here can say, no. We have examples in our own faith of the glory and of the choices before women. Not that women have not been subordinated. They have been. But that was not the original thinking of Hinduism. In fact, in Hinduism, Purusha and Prakriti, they are the originators of creation. If Shiva is Chitta, Parvati is Chitta Rupani, she is the one that gives action to that Purusha. And when they come together, then Srishti is born. In other words, we've given equal powers to. I'm not talking about the constitution. There is a book actually written in the 6th century CE, the Devi Mahamatma, which says that above all other gods is the Devi, and they are in Navratras now. In other words, who are you to tell me what is right or wrong? But to counter what somebody else is telling you, you must know enough about your own religion, at least the basics. Because, for instance, I have written on Krishna, published by Penguin, I have written on the Mahabharata, I have written a long poem on the Akshapashna, which is one of the most brilliant parts of the Mahabharata. It's called the Yudhishthira Draupadi. Gurdas have translated it, they wrote a play on it, and it was republished again. I've written on Chanakya, I've written on Shankaracharya, I've written on the great Hindu civilization. I can counter it. I'm not saying you have to write a book, but you must be capable of your own position where you take a stand based on some degree of knowledge and understanding. So when you ask me that question, I'm coming back to it. Which one should I follow? I'll be the last one to tell you. Wait, there are 6 systems. And by the way, each of them is technically atheist. Please understand. Because they are not talking of God. They are not talking of a deity. They are in search of what could be the ultimate truth behind the bewildering diversity of this cosmos. हम हैं कौन? क्यों जन्मे? ये सृष्टि क्या है? That is the query. It's not कि this is the God, we offer our salutation and we surrender. That too is there in Hinduism, through the bhakti school. But remember one thing, sorry I'm taking a little longer because I want to provoke them. You know, Adi Shankaracharya spoke of the Advaita school. But later, Ramanujan, and both are from the south, huh? So that this North Indian concept that we can define what is Sanatana Dharma. You must know, even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came from the south. And Adi Shankaracharya was born in Kaladi in Kerala. So Ramanujan, through some of the most beautifully argued philosophical arguments, took the Nirguna Brahma of the Advaita school as developed by Adi Shankaracharya to allow, without negating the Nirguna, the Saguna manifestation of the Nirguna. So what is Sri Ram? Form of the same but Shaguna. As Tulsidas says, Agumat Saguna Dui Brahma Swarupa. Nirguna Saguna. Aguna Saguna Dui Brahma Swarupa. Two images of that same cosmic consciousness. Agama, something Agatha Anadi Ananta. So it's the same thing, but it required philosophical application of mind, a great deal of cerebral energy argued in a manner which was not a fiat, but an argument, which took Nirguna to Saguna. What is Ram? Apart from being Maryada Purushottam. For Tulsidas, Ram is both Brahma, cosmic consciousness, and Lord Ram, the deity to which you go and say, the exams are in, or Mother. Why not? Bhakti school is there, Karma school is there, Jnana Marg is there. There are options before. And there are combinations. You can choose parts of Gyan Marg, and at other times, you see, we revel in contradictions. I often say Indians are harmonious schizophrenics. We live at two different planes. एक जगह हम अपने ईश्वरों की, भगवान की पूजा, शादी, लड़ाई, झगड़े, फैमिलीज सब कुछ जाता है और एक तरफ हमारे दिमाग में सब जा रहा है इट्स ऑल और दुनिया माया. So with this kind of a background of what I call last time Maulik Sut, original thought, you have to read. You have to make a choice. When I was a student in school, I read the Bhagavad Gita, first in translation, or later I read the Upanishad. I was profoundly moved. Or if you read the Rig Veda is 4,000 years old. Please read, all of you today on the net, the Nasibya Sutta. It's a part of the Rig Veda, the Nasibya Sutta. does not talk of God or tells you what religion is. It says it's full of awe, wonder, query, question. What is this word? Is it there or is it not there? That is the beginning of thought, of original thought. When you begin to think, rather than first say this is right and then think. And it applies to business. It applies to law. It applies to everything. The ability to think.
Did your answer?
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am.
What is your name?
My name is Archie. And sir, I want to know with increasing globalization and India is signing more and more agreements and free trade agreements with the foreign governments. Imported products appears to be more attractive and affordable to the Indian middle class. For example, if we talk of dairy sector, it is presumed that if it is open for international trade, then European products will flourish the Indian market and will overpower the domestic dairy products. So, sir, in such a scenario, how middle class can be encouraged with their budget constraints to be made vocal for local? Because with a huge number of middle class, the purchasing decision can impact the economy as a whole.
Good question. Locally vocal for local is the local is vocal. In other words, every government decides the right balance by which you protect your own industries and the right level of interaction with the globalizing world by which to provide competition to the local industry. Otherwise, you remember the days now, you are not born. Probably Nidhi also won. When you had one car, Fiat or ambassador. And there's no choice. So there's no incentive to improve the car. There was one Doordarshan. His most popular program was Chitra. So you have governments have to decide that yes, for any government, and that I mean any government, the United States protects its agricultural sector by subsidy. Governments have to decide how much to shield their local and how much to allow the external to interact in such a manner that the local has to compete with the external both in quality and pricing and after sales service. And the external has to compete with the local in terms of exactly the same parameters. Now, this being the conundrum, in 1991 in particular, we decided that the earlier system, where we had built tariff walls around India, by which we were protecting a certain cartel or monopoly of industries. It was called the license Raj system. Governments protected them, they gave them license, they gave them money, governments won elections, and so on. In 1991, and you know, with Dr. Manmohan Singh and Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, we opened that economy. In other words, we gave a challenge to the local, and those who could not compete went into obsolescence. And we allowed that level of external exposure which acted as an incentive. for Indians. And by the way, in the decade after 91, the average growth rate was about 8%. And by that growth rate, more people were lifted from below the poverty line than 30 years of socialism before. I'm not saying socialism is bad. In a country as poor as India, there has to be some level of welfareism. Because it's an unequal society. However, after 1991, it was the best time for the Indian middle class. Coming back to the subject. Because certain new sectors developed which were not there before. The service sector. The service sector provided, although it constituted a small component of the overall economy, it provided a disproportionate number of jobs. As the economy grew, jobs grew, salaries grew, and above all, for the middle class, there was a choice in consumer goods. I remember when people used to come back from abroad in the 70s, a bottle of shampoo, imported shampoo, cheese, chocolate. People used to ask for that because locally the choice was not there. I have served as a diplomat in East Europe before the Berlin Wall came down. And if we did not have an agency called Osterman Peterson, which was available to diplomats to import duty-free from outside the country, I wouldn't have got a good toothpaste. Because nothing was locally produced of quality. And nothing would be allowed to expose it to competition. So therefore, local for local is a good idea. But then the local should be also good enough. If the local is being pampered, nurtured, protected, or insulated merely because it is local, then you are doing the local level. Let me give you an example. In our country, there is a very large handicraft and handloom sector. I have been a member of parliament from Bihar. You must have heard of Madhubani paintings, or across India there are handicrafts. These have come down for millennia. It is the Western definition to make a difference between art and craft. There is no difference in our concept. In our concept, art is art. So when you see folk art, when you see a beautifully made hatched hut with drawings on the Gobar se lipta hua wall, it's art. It's not craft. So, if you can make that local, commercially viable in some way, then you will be able to keep the artists continuing to do that. If you can't, more and more people will do non-descript jobs where they get paid. So, local for local is a good slogan and a good idea. But then you must invest in the local. You must give it not only tribute, tariff, you must also give it assistance in a professional manner by which they can diversify without losing touch with their own art. What do I mean by diversification? Take textiles. Khadi. You had a situation where a good attempt was made some time ago, and I don't know if it continues, to make khadi chic. मतलब वो जो politicians पजामा कुर्ता पहनते हैं ना खादी का, not that. To make it an item of fashion. Then you are being actually local for local. Otherwise, one of the greatest calamities striking us is that our indigenous art and artisans are dying. काम करने वाली या जो है वो कमा नहीं सकते, दूसरे पेशे ज्वाइन करते. So that's why I say everything now local for local is such a nice sounding slogan, but apply your mind to it, and then you begin to see all its ramifications.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Aishwarya Yogaraba, and I'm a first year MBA student. So my question is that today we live in a society where there are still certain topics that are considered as taboos. We are not ready to have an open discussion about it. I mean, we are the same society who won't openly talk about LGBTQ rights, but we are still the same society that considered Shikhandi from Mahabharata as one of the great warriors. We do not want to talk about menstruation, but we will still worship goddess Kamaksha or celebrate the Raja festival. So my question is, speaking of middle class, to be precise, because that's what constitutes India mostly. Do you think the middle class is ready to have an open discussion about all these topics that are still considered as taboo, and not just discuss, but also accept the results that those discussions have?
I just want to add to that because she raised this issue of some of the taboo topics. The Supreme Court's judgment will just come on the same-sex marriage issue, and basically they've left it to Parliament. They said we cannot legislate on this, but they've asked the government to set up a committee to look at some civil union rights for queer couples, such as joint bank accounts, etc. The one big positive that they've done is that now queer couples and unmarried couples can also adopt children. So they've struck down that act which only allowed married couples to adopt kids. In a nutshell, it's a very, in a way, there are parts of it that are progressive, but they kicked the issue down the road, with the government committee, etc. I just wanted your thoughts on that as well.
See, I'll tell you. Now I'll start with something which you think has nothing to do with your question, but I'll come back to it. See, one of the things about countries which have been colonized, is that the colonizer, in our case Britain, its success lies not in physical subjugation. The success of colonialism lies in the colonization of the mind. तभी तो हम आज अंग्रेजी में बैठ के बात करें. Political freedom came in August 1947. One flag went down, the tricolor went up. But cultural colonialism takes decades to go. Now, when the British came, every colonizer tries to justify their right to rule by doing primarily one thing, by positing their culture, their values, as superior to those of the natives. In other words, they are civilizing us. Now, how did the British do it? They first did it by, except for a very short phase when they really appreciated the Asiatic society and all. But after that, they did it by critiquing, denigrating, condemning, ridiculing many aspects of our culture. In our culture, what is taboo? Today, the middle class thinks was not taboo. But the middle class is the most affected by colonization of the mind. So for the British, our gods, many gods and goddesses, the love play of Radha Krishna, Khajuraho, Konarak, I mean, in their sense of value systems and their dominant religion, these were not only bizarre, but these were immoral. And they written so. There is a book of mine which you can read called Becoming Indian. It's a excellent book. Becoming Indian, the unfinished revolution of culture. So, British thinking about Indian culture was internalized by the people they ruled. So, let me give you an example. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was a reformist. He ended the Sati Pratha. But Raja Ram Mohan Roy is the same person who wrote to the Viceroy. He is an Indian culture. It's not Bhagwas. What we need is Western science. We need modernity. Modernity defined as what the colonizer thinks. So if you have, any of you have read anything on, say for instance, the great Shringar love lore of Radha Krishna, I recommend you, not only Surdas, read Chandidas, read Vidyapati, read Bihari, Satsai, read Jaydev's Geet Govind, read the Bhagavad Puran, 8th century, read the Harivansh, 4th century, read the Vishnu Puran. When Krishna does his ras with the gopis, it is explicit. वो आत्मा परमात्मा नहीं है, क्योंकि बाद में गांधी जी ने भी कहा कि ये नहीं हो सकता हमारे religion. हमारे religion में था, because we believe 4 purusharths of life: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. This is the most balanced view of life, which gives place to each of us. So therefore, what was sanctioned in our religion? Can you build a temple like Khajuraho, which is a beautiful temple, if there was not public acceptance of the fact that karma is one part of the 4 purusharths? And please don't Khajuraho. I recommend lower panels are erotic in nature. Middle panel just shows the deity and the concept. If it's a Shiva temple, it will show Shiva and Shakti or Kama. And the pinnacle, the Shikhar, will be just the Trinity: Shiva, Vishnu, or there is a structure to it. And I don't know if I told you, Rajya wrote the Kama Sutra. That's the only Kama Sutra is survived, but he himself refers to at least 60, 70 other manuals. It is considered a normal aspect of life, but not the only aspect. So Vatsyayan is asked in the Kama Sutra in the first chapter. आप लोग तो जब कामा सूत्र देखते तो सिर्फ illustrations देखते or think of the impossible postures. But actually, it's a deeply philosophical text. Incidentally, I have a book on the Kama Sutra. which is published in many languages. However, in the first chapter, Vatsyayan, who wrote it, who was a sage and celebrated for 1 year before he wrote the book, he is asked by an imaginary interlocutor. So someone pushed that, why do we need this book? His answer is, well, I said to you, that the Hindu worldview, there are 4 portions: Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Each of these followed in proportion and none in exclusion. The first 3: Dharma, Artha, material well-being, Kama, essential. Each of the first 3 followed in proportion and not in exclusion leads automatically to the 4th, which is moksha. So there is no exclusion. But following colonialism and a strange conundrum has occurred now. The middle class began to think that all of these things are dirty, bad, taboo, ये तो नहीं हो सकता. मतलब अपने ही कल्चरल लेगेसी के विपरीत है, क्योंकि ये अंग्रेजों का दिमाग में. और अब ये हालत है कि जो those protecting Hinduism are the biggest examples of Victorian morality. They harass couples in the park. This is not right. Rakhi Bapu. Amazing. Valentine's Day. Achalo, Valentine's Day, so I can imagine.
So there was this incident of this husband and wife, they were kissing, and the public, they just started beating the husband. And they were the, husband and wife, still they beat him.
Amazing situation. भाई हमारे जमाने में, अब वजह से हमारे जमाने में on top of our cultural legacy, there was no such taboo. But this taboo got internalized in our psyche over a period of time. And the strange irony of history is that those who now wish to protect our cultural legacy have become the greatest voice of those who colonized us, Victorians. So when you ask the question about why it's not discussed in the middle class, it will be, gradually it will be, the younger generation will push the horizon. But we are simultaneously now another force, which is the ultra-right Hindu, who says, no, I will tell you, women should be supported. Don't talk of all these things, ये हमारी संस्कृति नहीं है. हम बताएंगे आपको क्या सही है, क्या गलत है. और अगर आप ऐसे बाहर बैठी पार्क में, तो आपका तो चरित्र. और what is this? This is not भारतीय संस्कृति. कौन होते हो तुम बताने वाले? पढ़ो तो, लिखो तो, पढ़ते हो भाई. So I have to answer.
Hello sir, my name is Madhu. So I want to take a break from going through background and ancient history. So let's come to politics. So I want to ask you about politician and business nexus and the crony capitalism. Everybody knows ruling party out of favorite. Anyhow, so I want to ask you what is the connection between politics and businesses, and the reason electoral bond scheme also is another question. The Supreme Court cases, electoral bond case. There is Supreme Court cases going on, so they're taking the case right now. And so I want to know about how does the crony capitalism affect our political system, and what is the way out? Should we have institutional checks and balances to make sure there is delineation between the, or what is the way forward?
So I can hold a whole session on this because I've been a politician. I am a politician. and I was a diplomat and I'm a writer.
Recently there was a report I read earlier in my newspaper that Nova Modi was she asking questions on behalf of some individuals. So Kiran, I guess, and she took money to ask questions. The report is allegedly. I mean, it's a report.
I can hold another session on Nova Modi, but she's a good friend and I'm not commenting on the merits. I'm not.
Ask the mic pictures so that you guys very smartly about it.
Let me make my answer short because this requires a long answer and we don't have next step. Next step. But anyway, now, politics and money are two sides of the same coin. Unfortunately, in the world's largest democracy, no political party runs on the forerunner contribution of its party members. We had the world's most expensive election ever, beating the United States in 2019. Parties collect money. Parties collect money because they do favors to people who can pay. As simple as that. And the ruling party is usually because it takes decisions that helps those who can pay the money, the biggest beneficiary of such contribution. It could be the Congress in the past. There is no doubt, and RTI's answer was that the bulk of the electoral bonds, 90% or so, go to the BJP. This nexus needs to be broken, but it is a very difficult proposition. And certainly, let me just give a strong answer. The electoral bonds was an eye-push. Arun Jaitley, brought it in Parliament, was my class fellow from school. We went to university together, we did law together. Good friend of mine, but I told him I was in Parliament, the member of the House when he brought it in, and I told him later in Central Hall when we had coffee, क्या मजाक है. But the truth is, electoral bonds, what has it changed? The donor is anonymous, the party is anonymous. Instead of payment in cash, you are making payments by converting that cash by any means through the transfer. Who is paying whom is not known. Who is paying whom for what favor is not known. So, the electoral bonds provided a veneer of transparency which in fact is totally non-existent, nothing has changed. The only way perhaps this can be done is through technology. Bernie Sanders attempted it in the United States, where he raised funds publicly by crowdfunding. He asked his supporters, if you give me $1, do it by transfer. So on his website, he collected about over $300 million. Each amount paid by anybody is digitally trackable. Parties in India can do the same. भाई 140 करोड़ के लोग इस देश में और समझिए 70 crore voters हैं. If each gives 100 rupees, it's a lot of money to any party, but digital, where anybody asked can show that Kanhaiya Lal from Gurugram paid 100 rupees by digital transfer. Now, that's it's doable, but it's more difficult. पर आपको पूंजीपति देने को तैयार है, is willing to pay, and his gain is not getting low. And the government knows who has paid, but they not have to really. That crony capitalism is not to be there. Crony capitalism is not new. It was there in the license law, and it's there today. And governments can do it legally. You draw up a tender. I don't want to name such examples for any party. This is not a political debate. I reserve my politics for television and elsewhere. Where, for instance, a particular airport has to be given to a firm to build. So you draw a tender such with those specifications, so many years of experience, so many previous such projects, so much liquidity, etc., etc. And you find that only one company qualifies. Or you can choose, if you want a particular architect for a particular project, say the capital gain. Now, how do you ensure that through the tender process that person gets it? So you put out of the 100%, 20% on valuation of price, what price they are willing to execute it, and 80% or 60% on evaluation of the quality of the product. And the committee is instituted by the government. So who gets it? Even if they are not eligible, it's not legal. So governments have the ability to pursue crony. Simple. Money is the reason why they do it. लोग अपने पर गाने, हमने गाना की कोशिश नहीं गाने, बस था तो बुरा किया. So if you are able through the legal process of doing a favor to somebody who is willing to pay sufficiently, because no party, including the parties I have been associated with, although I never done it with money, can fight an election without money, which is far beyond the ceiling prescribed by the election commission. It's not possible. एक रैली 10 करोड़ 8 करोड़. So that's the simple truth. Now we have a session on this as to what are the solutions, what can the middle class do, can it ask the right questions, can it have a movement, that means it was
We have time for one more question. So anybody in the back, because I saw some raised hands earlier, one more question. Come on, guys. You have a question? Go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. So you stated in your myself, Anshri Gupta, and Anshri Gupta. So you stated in your book, Great Hindu Civilization, that academic elite are liberal enough to make strong judgments.
Sorry. She's forgetting something.
You stated that academic elite are liberal enough to be strongly judgmental about Hindu religion without even knowing religion enough. And that is because of the British imprints that we are still carrying in our minds. What we can do as young generation to reestablish our culture, and is it important? Aren't we supposed to be religious tolerant to survive in India?
Yes, it's a good question. I think I wrote that in the context of a very knowledgeable indulgence, respected Vente Monica. Wendy Doniger wrote a 600-page book called, I think, The Hindus, in which she has theories. And she, for instance, says that, talking about Hinduism, she says, dare I use the capital H? And she described it finally as a cross between an armadillo and a hedgehog. Neither this nor that. So there was a reaction to it. My book reacts to it because any religion which allows for diversity and is not like the Abrahamic religions, for which I have respect, but the Abrahamic religions lay out 10 commandments, ye sahi hai, ye karna. Hinduism does not. It allows for diversity. Even the Ramayana has 300 versions. So, one professor in the US, an Indian called Rajiv Malhotra, called it chaos anxiety. We have chaos anxiety. For everything you say in Hinduism, I can produce another example to prove the point. This is the way it is. So, she wrote these things when there was a reaction. Her explanation was that I wrote the book largely for an American audience. I did not think it would be read in India. यानी 600 पेज की किताब आप हिंदूज को लिख दें, हम अनपढ़ गंवार जंगलों में रह रहे हैं, क्या पढ़ेंगे? So what has happened is, you understand the complexity of your question. At one level, what has happened is a great deal of genuinely appreciated original work has been done on our text by Westerners. Even today, in SOAS, in the UK, in some of the top universities in the US, that research work goes on. Now, they form an opinion. By and large, sometimes appreciative, sometimes critical. In our country, that original research is lacking, funds are lacking, endowments are not coming, languages are dying. So, we are beginning to now rectify it and give a reaction and have our point of view on a matter which is contentious. But there again lies a danger. If we counter by saying that everything that you say is wrong and everything that is right in Hinduism, then it is not a cerebral, not a thinking reaction, but an angry reaction. So, Wendy Doniger की किताब आप चला सकते हैं, तो जवाब दीजिए ना, रैशनल जवाब. I have attempted it in great Hinduism on some aspects, but there are others. There are Indologists. There is a whole school of Indology. There was a conference held in the US by a group of people who were critical of, for instance, the Hindu ultra-right. It became a matter of politics, not of religious discourse. They said you are anti-Hindu. They said you are anti-Hindu. So finally I come back as we end to the importance of Shastra. Sabya Samvad, civilized discourse.
Thank you very much. Can we please
Have a round of applause. I want to thank you, Mr. Varma, because you dealt. I thought you guys asked really good questions today, and I think that they were complex, they were sort of quite diverse in their range, and of course, as usual, you went in depth into all of those issues. You may still have some questions that you want to ask him, but he's coming here regularly, so do feel free in subsequent sessions to do that. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you again very soon. Thank you.